Of it's the evil and the ugliness of people's hearts these days is everywhere.
This is Franky Rose's Think Tank. Here's your host, Franky Rose.
Hey guys, welcome to the Think Tank. Hey Juju, there you are. Good to see you. Hi Shauna and Mexi. I really appreciate that, guys. So we are on day 8, the afternoon session. This morning was interesting. It's like, okay, here we go. Bunch of people from their area. And of course, they're all going to be interesting because they weren't in high-end areas. So yeah, we had some interesting characters this morning. Oh, thank you, Shauna. You rock. And Juju. So yeah, not much longer and they should be back in session. I'm not showing myself right now because I pigged out on a big thing of popcorn and I'm picking my teeth because I've got husk everywhere now. Not a good look. So while I was sitting here, kind of waiting, I went and I watched some stuff on Lena Kill. She'd be 6 now, but she was missing when she was about 4 years old, taken from a playground that was part of an apartment complex that her family stayed in. And allegedly someone took her from there. That's the last place she was spotted on camera. So they're busy working on the back end. It's a treat area. They've been there before, but they brought in this morning, what is it called? Sonic sonar to see if they could find anything. Hey, there you go, Mom. Good to see you. And then they just brought excavators in. So that's concerning. How's your day going, Mom? They're sure looking for Lena, hey? I hope they get some results this time. Can we go one day without hearing from Elaine? That would be nice.
Okay. Witness when you're ready.
Yes, sir. Excuse me. Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Detective Adam Montgomery. And before he comes in here, I would just ask that the court turn the lights down.
We're going to turn the lights down, please. We're turning the lights down. The witness has a light sensitivity right now, so we are going to be turning the lights down.
Oh, there we go.
Perfect.
Ooh, spooky. Spooky.
Just be careful of the wires, please.
So, Detective Montgomery, I'm going to ask that you remain standing and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony that you'll provide this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. You can have a seat. And is the lighting okay here?
It's okay. Yeah.
At any point, if you need to take a break, please let us know so we can request that from the judge.
Okay.
Detective Bergeron-Rosa, can you begin by stating and spelling your first and last name for the record?
Detective Adam Bergeron-Rosa, ADAMBERGERON-ROSA.
And Detective Bergeron-Rosa, how are you presently employed?
With the Manchester, New Hampshire Police Department.
And let me back up for just a second. Where do you currently reside?
Where do I currently reside?
City and state.
I currently reside in Allenstown, New Hampshire.
How long have you been a New Hampshire resident?
My whole life.
And you mentioned that you presently work for the Manchester Police Department.
Yes.
How long have you worked there?
Just over 15 years.
And what is your current assignment with the Manchester Police Department?
I'm a detective.
As a detective with the Manchester Police Department, what are your roles and responsibilities?
To investigate the crimes within the city of Manchester. That includes things like interviewing victims, suspects, witnesses, other involved parties, processing crime scenes, documenting evidence, collecting that evidence, and I'm also a liaison officer between Leeds Online and the Manchester PD.
I'm going to follow up with you on a few of those specific areas as we go along here. Let me ask you this: Are you active? Are you on active duty currently?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Are you currently on a medical leave?
When need be, yes.
And I talked to you earlier about light sensitivity.
Yes.
Are you on medical leave currently?
Currently, I'm on FMLA, yes.
And you're actually out this entire month, is that right?
I am.
So again, if you need to take a break at any point, just let us know.
Okay.
You mentioned working for the Manchester Police Department for 15 years.
Yes.
Any other law enforcement experience outside of that?
Not outside the Manchester Police Department, no.
As an officer with the Manchester Police Department, did you graduate from the New Hampshire Police Academy?
I did in April 2009.
And do you remember what class you were?
148.
Detective Bergeron Rosa, while working in your official capacity as a detective with the Manchester Police Department, were you assigned duties regarding the investigation of the disappearance of Harmony Montgomery?
I was.
And can you describe generally, just generally, so a bird's eye view of your role and participation in that investigation?
Documentation and photographing of various crime scenes and anything when it came to Leeds Online.
During your involvement in the investigation, did you participate in neighborhood canvassing?
I did on one occasion, I believe down in Lowell, where we canvassed the neighborhood.
Did you participate in area searches during the course of your involvement?
I did.
How about digs? Did you?
One occasion, yes.
On one occasion?
Yes.
And where was that location?
I believe it was 77 Guilford Street.
Did you participate in evidence processing?
I did.
I want to go into some of the specific things that you did during the course of your investigation in this case. And I want to begin by talking about the processing of an Audi IS4 bearing New Hampshire registration 4569334. During your involvement, did you participate in the processing of that vehicle?
I did.
And what was the condition of that vehicle when you processed it?
It was poor. Specifically, the inside was damp, covered in mold. The condition of the vehicle was poor.
What was your specific role in processing that vehicle?
To apply Blue Star to the interior of the vehicle and document the results.
And were you assisted by other detectives in processing that Audi IS4?
I was.
And do you recall their names?
Detective Bombard and Detective Ray Lamy.
Do you recall when that processing occurred?
January 21st, 2022 through January 23rd, 2022.
And I think you mentioned this, but you used a chemical process called Blue Star. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the jury's heard a lot about Blue Star during the course of this trial. Let me ask you this. Did you receive presumptive positive results during the processing of that vehicle?
We did.
And with the samples that you received presumptive positives on, what did you do with those samples?
So if it was on a part of the vehicle that could be removed, we removed that article that had that presumptive positive on it and then packaged that article as evidence. If they were on parts of the vehicle that could not be removed, we took a blood swab or a swab of that area, of that presumptive positive area.
So you swabbed the area?
Yeah, we swabbed it.
Do you know what occurred with those samples after your processing?
I don't.
Do you believe they would have been sent to the lab?
Oh, of course.
Okay. And we've already heard from the folks at the lab, so I'm not going to question you about that. I want to transition. I want to switch gears. I want to talk about a specific address. specifically 177 Lake Ave. Are you familiar with that location?
I am.
Is that also known as the Families in Transition or FIT shelter?
It is
And what city is that location
in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Can you describe your role and participation in processing 177 Lake Ave?
Primarily photography and processing that scene with Blue Star.
Were you accompanied by other detectives during the processing of the Families in Transition shelter?
I was.
Do you recall the specific room that you responded to?
I don't remember the actual room number, but I do remember being there and doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you took photographs during that processing?
I did.
And do you recall who you were with during the processing of the Families in Transition shelter?
Yes, I was with Detective Sergeant Lovejoy, Detective Ray Hill, Detective Garrett Bombard, and Detective Ray Lammy.
And I'm going to bounce around from thing to thing, but I want to switch gears again. I want to talk about the processing of an address, 644 Union Street. Are you familiar with that location?
I am.
And can you describe your familiarity with that location?
It's in Manchester, New Hampshire, more or less at the corner of Union and Orange. It's a big multi-family building with several levels. And how much more do you want me to go into?
That's fine.
Okay.
During the course of your involvement in this case, though, did you participate in the processing of one of the specific units?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors about the specific actions that you took during that processing?
So I was mainly assigned to take photographs of the processing and evidence collection of the first floor at 644 Union Street and the basement. Whatever evidentiary items came out of that.
With regard to the evidentiary items that came out of the basement area, can you walk the jurors through generally what was collected?
So generally speaking, we were focused on the drain pipes going into the basement where all the other units converged into what's called, the plumbers called the tree. That goes down into a single pipe that then exits the building into the city sewer, the street.
How large are those pipes?
Very large. Most of them were very old 4 or 5 foot sections of cast iron.
Cast iron?
Yep.
I imagine they would be very heavy as well.
They were.
And before we talk more about those specific pipes, what other agencies, if any, were present during the processing of that apartment?
Primarily the FBI was present.
And what was their role in processing that apartment?
As I recall, they were processing the top level of the series of apartments. I was not really there to see what they did, but they were on the top level, and we were on the first floor, and in the basement.
I want to turn back to the pipes that you mentioned.
Okay.
I think you said your role was to collect photographs during the processing of that apartment. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you take photographs of the entire processing of those pipes?
Yeah, I did.
And those large cast iron pipes, were they removed from that apartment unit, the apartment building?
Yes, they were.
Your Honor, may I have questions for you?
Mr. May?
So Detective Bergeron Rosa, I'm handing you what's been marked for identification as States Exhibits 57 through 60.
Okay.
I'm just going to ask that you look through each of those in turn and look up when you finish. Do you recognize those images?
I do.
And what do you recognize them from?
Those are images I took.
You took those.
Yes.
And was that during the specific processing of the pipes that we
Yes.
Are they fair and accurate representations of what you observed that day?
Yes.
Your Honor, the state moves to strike the ID of State's Exhibit, what's been marked as State's Exhibit 57 through 60, and mark as full and published to the jury.
No objection.
All right. The ID is stricken. They're entered as full exhibits. They may be published to the jury.
So Detective Bergeron Rosa, I'm going to leave these with you. I don't
Okay.
know if that would be easier than looking at the screen behind you. I'm also going to put them up on the screen.
Okay.
So whichever you prefer. I'm going to start with a question about those apartment units, the apartment units that you searched. What led you to those apartment units?
As I understood it, from the lead detectives on that this case, is it was a prior residence of the people involved.
Who specifically was the prior resident?
Adam Montgomery and Kayla Montgomery.
And so before we get to the actual photos themselves, you mentioned that the pipes were processed. How did you process them?
So this was a unique circumstance for us. So we had to devise a way to get the contents of those pipes out so we can then look at them for anything of evidentiary value. So what we did is we suspended the pipes off the back of a police truck off the tailgate at about a 45-degree angle, and had a sifting device with 3 levels of sifting that we would then power wash the inside of those pipes, and the contents would then spill out onto these sifters. And after each pipe was done, we would empty those sifters and look at the contents to see if anything of evidentiary value was there.
It's almost like gold pan.
Yeah.
And let me back up. Before you set up that contraption, did you cut the pipes out?
Of course, yes.
Where were the pipes from?
Those pipes were brought to the Manchester police station.
And the setup that you're discussing, where specifically in the Manchester Police Department did that?
These photos, we transferred the pipes to, because this was kind of a large operation, it needed a lot of space. So we went to one of the bays in the highway department across from the parking lot and conducted the sifting there of those pipes.
And so I'm going to turn your attention to what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 60. Is that consistent with the State's Exhibit 60 that's in front of you?
Yes.
And so can you explain to the jurors what we're seeing in this image?
We have, the back tailgate of the truck, and we strapped down the pipes that we extracted from 644 Union Street, and we use our sifting devices and power wash one end of them, and the contents would spill out onto here, and through each layer, and we would look through the contents of those pipes after we power wash them thoroughly and see if there was anything of evidentiary value.
Turning your attention to what's been marked as State's Exhibit 59. What are we looking at here?
That is one of the pipes after power washing.
And was this, you said this was after the power washing?
Yes.
And we'll talk about that in just a moment. Turning to State's Exhibit 58. What are we looking at here, Bergeron Rosa?
That is in the previous image of the double pipes. That's the one closest to you. That's before power washing.
Now, you mentioned a power washing, and I want to turn to State's Exhibit 57. What are we seeing in this image?
a high pressure hose that is manned by, I believe, I can't see the face, but if I remember, it was Detective Bombard holding that. And the high pressure hose, you put it in the end of the pipe, and the water would shoot down the pipe, and any loose contents would flow down into those sifting devices.
And you mentioned those sifting devices. Let me ask you this, Detective. Was there a forensic anthropologist there that day with your team?
There was.
Okay. And do you know that individual's name?
I do not recall, but she was there. I don't recall her name.
Why was there a forensic anthropologist there that day?
Well, in the instance that we found any kind of human remains, she would be able to assist us in identifying preliminarily if those remains were in fact human or not.
Your work that day processing those pipes, about how long did you work on that specific processing?
It was most of the day.
Multiple individuals there.
Yes.
So, Detective, I want to switch gears again. And I want to talk about your involvement with collecting specific evidence items in this case.
Okay.
I want to discuss obtaining evidence items ABR2 and ABR4.
Okay.
We spoke earlier about your duties and assignments, and you mentioned that you currently serve as a liaison between the Manchester Police Department and an organization called Leads Online. Leads Online.
That's correct.
Can you explain that to the jury? What is Leads Online and what's your involvement with them?
So Leads Online is a law enforcement pond database that we have access to assist us in our investigations, primarily in stolen property. In the city of Manchester, there are rules and regulations that pawn shops and secondhand dealers have to document what they bring in from people. And that information gets put on Leads Online, which we can then look at. So for instance, in the most simplest terms, if someone commits a burglary at a residence and steals a bunch of items, a lot of times that burglar or their associates, for quick cash, dumps them off at a pawn shop and gets the quick cash. And we can see, based on the report, statements and everything like that, if the items we compare, and a lot of times those items do end up in pawn shops for the quick cash that the suspects need for whatever needs they need it for.
So a simplified version of that is you're able to track specific individuals to specific items.
Exactly.
During the course of your investigation, were you tasked with tracking information related to an individual named Kelsey Small?
I was.
And how about Adam Montgomery?
I was.
And did you do that following your assignment?
Yes, on January 5th, 2022.
How did you go about tracking items related to those two individuals?
So I signed into the Leads Online program, and it's fairly simple. I had the names of the people of interest, and I plugged their names into separate searches, and it pops up with any kind of secondhand transactions, that they conducted at either a pawn shop, and in this case, it occurred at an Eco ATM at Walmart.
And let me back up. There was another individual. Were you assigned to track another individual named Caleb Montgomery?
Yes.
And you said tracked to a specific Eco ATM transaction that occurred at Walmart, and I want to talk about that.
Okay.
So I want to turn your attention to December 30th, rather, of 2021. You said that your search yielded results. I want to talk specifically about the results from that specific day.
Okay.
Can you walk the jurors through your involvement in gathering information related to that transaction?
Sure. So I put in the searches for those three individuals in leads online. And what came up was on or about December 30th, there were 4 separate transactions for 4 separate electronic devices that occurred at the Eco ATM at Walmart, 725 Gold Street on December 30th, 2021. Those transactions were conducted by Kelsey Small. And in those transactions, I can see a photo of the individual's ID, because that's what's required to make those transactions, a photo of the individual themselves, and a specific information on each item, like serial numbers if they're available, and a photo of those items that were sold to that Eco ATM.
Your Honor, again, may I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
So Detective Bergeron Rosa, at a moment I'll be handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 90, previously published to this jury. And I'm just going to ask that you take a look at State's Exhibit 90. I'm going to move these exhibits away. And just look up when you have a chance to.
These are the certified records of those transactions from Eco ATM.
Have you seen those records before?
I have.
Familiar with them?
I am.
And to the extent that those have already been published, Your Honor, I move to republish to the jury.
You may do so.
And you mentioned that those are the certified records from the Eco ATM transactions. Did you actually obtain those during the course of your involvement in this investigation?
I did.
And is that those documents, are they consistent with what you obtained?
Yes, they are.
I'm going to ask that you look to the screen behind you. What's up on the screen, is that consistent with State's Exhibit 90 that's in front of you?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
And feel free to look at State's Exhibit 90 or the screen behind you, whichever one you prefer. So I want to ask you, what's the name of the individual in the top left that conducted the
Small.
transaction that day?
Kelsey Small.
And what was the date and time of the transaction? That should be on the top right.
December 30th, 2021 at 2:18 p.m.
And so I want to walk through the phone's make and model.
Samsung Galaxy A01 cell phone.
And that's with respect to one of those 4 transactions? Is that...
Yes, it is.
And so I want to ask you this, what amount did Eco ATM pay the individuals for this transaction, for this phone?
$1.
$1.
$1.
You mentioned this earlier, but you said that Eco ATM captures certain identifying information of the people that make the transaction or the person that makes the transaction.
Yes.
And so I want to turn your attention back to the screen. Those records that you received, did they capture that information?
Yes, they captured this information, yes.
And you said you'd previously reviewed this information. Can you point the jurors to the individual Kelsey Small that you were tasked with tracking transactions related to?
This young lady right here.
Detective Bergeron Rosa, what was the next step of your investigation following receipt of this information?
So the next thing I went to do is I do what's called, I put a hold on these items, which means I send a notification to Eco ATM to say, hey, do not dispose of these things. We want them for our investigation.
And why would you put a hold on items?
So they do not go wherever they go to their processing center and get destroyed.
Okay. Cell phones, do they generally contain relevant information?
Well, yeah, that too. I mean, the data on these electronic devices can be very valuable to an investigation.
You mentioned putting a hold on those items. Did you ultimately collect them?
I did.
And with respect to the device that you just read off to the jurors, the Samsung Galaxy A01 cell phone, did you collect that specific item?
I did.
And did you give it a specific evidence number?
I did.
What was that evidence number?
ABR4.
ABR4.
4.
If I can have just a moment. Your Honor, may I approach the witness again?
Yes, you may.
Detective Bergeron Rose, I'm handing you what's been marked for identification as States Exhibits 143 and 144. And I'm just going to ask that you look at both of those in turn and describe to the jurors what they depict.
144 is a photo of that Samsung A01 cell phone, and the other is the packaging, evidence packaging that I put that cell phone in.
You say that you put the cell phone in. So do you recognize the images that are depicted there?
Yes, I recognize these.
Are they fair and accurate?
Yes, they are.
True and correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move to strike the ID of States Exhibits 143 and 144.
Right, the ID is stricken. They're entered as full exhibits,
Okay.
and they may be published to the jury.
So, Detective Bergeron Rosa, you said that you collected the cell phone and you packaged it.
Yes.
What did you ultimately do with this cell phone?
I later provided it to our cybercrime detective, Lou Krozik,
And why did you do that? Why provide it to a cybercrime detective?
so he could perform a cell phone data extraction on it.
You said a cell phone data extraction?
Yes.
Did you receive consent from the Eco ATM to take the items and to search them?
Yes. Before that was done, I did contact Eco ATM, and they gave us clear permission to do what we needed with the devices as it pertained to the investigation, which included a data extraction.
With respect to this transaction, what was the next step in your investigation?
Well, we had a photo of the person who conducted the Eco ATM transaction. So next we wanted to see if we could obtain video from Walmart.
Why did you want the footage from Walmart?
To see who possibly Kelsey was with when these transactions were conducted.
What steps did you take to obtain that footage?
I contacted the asset protection officer at Walmart, Mike Doby, and requested the surveillance video footage.
And did you obtain it?
I did.
And I think you mentioned this, but you interacted with Michael Dobe.
I did.
And similar to the cell phone that we just discussed, did you give that footage a specific evidence number?
I did, and that evidence number is ABR2.
Thank you. I have no further questions for you.
Good afternoon. I have no questions.
Okay.
You may sit down.
Thank you.
Your Honor, at this time, the state will call Detective Lou Krozik to the stand, please. Please,
Oh, another cop?
watch your step on the boards, please, on the way in. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I went out to see what she's barking at, and like she's just down there looking around barking. It's like, oh my word.
Detective, you remain standing just for a brief moment. You solemnly swear the testimony that you will give this jury,
Cop.
the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Zoomy time.
Recorded here today. State your full name and spell both your first and your last name for the record.
Louis Krozik, LOUISKRAWCZYK.
And as we can probably guess from your title, can I ask you where you're currently employed?
Manchester Police Department.
How long have you been working there?
About 23 years.
23 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Whoa.
Did you graduate from the New Hampshire Police Standards and Training Academy?
Yes.
And do you remember your academy class number?
131.
131. With regards to the time that you've been working at the Manchester Police Department, can you describe for us, please, a couple of the different positions that you've had and the different sorts of duties you've had during that time?
I started as a dispatcher. In 2003, I became a police officer.
Yeah,
And
I can
for
go with
about
that.
12 years. I then became a detective, worked general cases, investigations, and moved to cyber crimes in, I think, 2017.
2017. And are you still working cyber crimes to this day?
Yes.
And working in that particular unit or division, how are those duties different from necessarily other detectives that might be working juvenile crimes or domestic
doing
violence
out there?
crimes or general adult crimes?
I mostly work with evidence for other cases that other detectives are working on. So I specialize in digital evidence, phones, computers, electronics.
Can you talk a little bit and explain to the jury what is some of the training that you've had to go through in order to be able to work in this unit and do the type of work with electronics that you do on an everyday basis?
I've had a lot of different trainings through the Secret Service, Homeland Security. I've had trainings through some of the companies that make the equipment that we use, including Celebrite, Magnet. And I've done some of their certification programs also.
The trainings that you take part in, do these sometimes happen almost on a yearly basis to keep up to date with new procedures?
Yes, it's constant.
And as part of your trainings and part of your work, I should say overall, let's just say work, do you do data extractions from cell phones?
Yes.
Over the years, about how many different cell phone extractions would you say you've done?
I didn't count, but probably close to 1,000.
1,000. Can you talk to us a little bit with regards to when extracting information from a cell phone about the term an IMEI? What does IMEI stand for?
I hate acronyms, but it stands for International Mobile Equipment Identifier. It's basically a serial number for a phone.
Like a serial number?
Yes.
So I guess like a serial number, is it unique to a brand of phone or is it unique to a handset, a phone itself?
It's the specific phone. It's how the company identifies that phone.
In connection with the investigation into the disappearance of Harmony Montgomery, did you extract data from a cell phone provided by Detective Adam Bergeron Rosa, labeled evidence item ABR4, a black Samsung cell phone with an IMEI number of 352-082-509-319-804?
Yes.
And generally, how are data extractions conducted from a phone? So if I were to bring my phone into you and say, I need you to go ahead and extract it, how do you go about doing that?
We have physical tools and software to copy the data off the phones, and it varies. All phones are different, and there's different operating systems, so it varies slightly, but usually it involves some specified equipment.
With respect to the extraction from this phone, this ABR4 cell phone, how did you do that one? How did that proceed?
We have a tool called the Gray Key.
Gray Key. Is that a software or is that hardware?
It's hardware.
Okay. And how does that work?
You plug the phone in, it gives you instructions. It can determine if there's a pin to the phone. And once it finds a pin, it'll extract all the data from the phone.
Is that software generally accepted and utilized by law enforcement agencies across the country?
Yes.
And were you able to extract data from that cell phone, from that ABR4 cell phone?
Yes, I was.
What was done with the data that you extracted from that phone?
We have a software program that interprets the data to organize it so that you can look through it.
And did you save that data into evidence?
Yes.
Do you remember what evidence item you gave to it? It's my understanding that detectives typically use their initials when they put
Yes.
something into evidence. What would this have been called?
I believe it was LJK5.
LJK5 being your initials, right?
Yes.
Does that data extraction process also place the extracted data into a searchable format so that you can just look through with a user account and find different identified information on there?
Yes, it does.
And one key thing I want to ask, the extraction that you do, does that actually change or put any data on the phone, or does it simply copy the data that's on the phone into the searchable format?
It has to, sometimes it has to put a client on the phone, but it won't alter the user data at all.
And will it alter the information such as messages sent to and from, or list of contacts, or photographs that are on there, videos that are on there, music that's on there, anything like that?
No.
Were photos of the phone and the envelope it came in taken as part of your extraction process?
Yes.
I'd like to go ahead and direct your attention for the screen for what's already been marked as a full exhibit, States Exhibit 143. And if you could please, what's this a photograph of generally?
That's how we package evidence.
And I'd like to go ahead and look a little bit closer. The label, do you recognize that zoom in as the label on that envelope?
Yes.
And with regards to it, what's the label that's been given for this cell phone? What are the initials that came, the evidence initials that came with this one?
ABR4.
Separate from that, I'd like to also go ahead and show what's been marked as States Exhibit 144. Do you recognize what this is a picture of?
Yes.
And what is it?
It's the back of the cell phone, ABR4.
There are two white rectangles that I see on the screen here. Are those labels?
Yes.
And are those labels that you put on?
No.
I'd like to go ahead and focus in on the label on the bottom, if I could, please, and we'll zoom in here. Is this that same ABR4 phone that you downloaded?
Yes.
Okay. And with regards to that, could you read the IMEI number for us, please?
352-082-509-319804.
I apologize. Detective Krosnick, I'm just going to have you look at actually States Exhibit 143 and 144. I just wanted to have you go ahead and compare it to the images behind you. If you could look back on 144 just for a moment. Other than the fact that the one behind you happens to be in color and that one is in black and white, are there any other changes between those two images?
No.
I'd like to direct your attention to 143. Same question. Other than the fact that what's on the screen behind you is in color and what's in front of you is in black and white, any other changes or differences between those two images?
No.
Thank you. Detective, did you look at some of the data that came off of the cell phone yourself?
Yes.
And did the data extraction process that you went through, did that also provide information as to whether or not a Facebook Messenger account was once logged onto the phone and accessed on the phone?
It did.
Can cell phones that have been deleted still hold on to relevant information on them for investigations?
Yes.
How is that?
There's a couple different ways. For an older phone, you can access the deleted space on a phone. If you delete something, you're basically telling the phone that it can use that space again, but it doesn't remove anything that's there. And then on a newer phone, a lot of times information is stored in a database, and similar to the way the drive on the phone works, you're just telling the database it's okay to use this spot. You're not actually deleting the stuff on the spot until something new has to be written.
I imagine most jurors are familiar with the phrase Facebook or Facebook Messenger, but for those who are not, can you just explain to us what is Facebook and what is the Facebook Messenger service?
Facebook is a social media app, so people can post things publicly or to a private group. Messenger is their messaging app that's associated with Facebook, It used to be one app, but I think they separated into two different apps. Similar to text messages, you can send and receive messages to people.
How do you identify one Facebook Messenger account from another?
Facebook uses either a unique name or often now it's a number, identifying number.
Returning back to the data that was extracted from this cell phone that we see up on the screen, ABR4, were you able to see whether a Facebook Messenger account with the account number of 100090070788583 was once logged onto that phone or accessed from that phone?
It was.
And how do you look into a user account extracted from the phone for the Facebook account?
The software will usually identify it. It looks through the Facebook files from the application, and then I manually look at the files that I picked out to confirm that the software is accurate.
So that particular account that I read out before, and I'll be clear about it, it's 140-900-788-5803. Was that Facebook account once logged into this phone that you searched?
Yes.
And you found evidence of that on this phone. Is that
Yes.
correct? I'd like to now show you what's been marked States Exhibit 11. It's a full exhibit. And here I'm on page 2 of that exhibit. Let me ask just generally, do you recognize this exhibit at all?
Not this specific one, no.
Okay. Do you know of any individual by the name of Matt Gendron?
I do not.
I'd like to zoom in here at the very top of the screen. Could you please read for us what the Facebook account is for this message thread involved?
This is 1000900-788-5803.
Thank you. And also on this particular exhibit, and is that highlighted appropriately with the yellow circle, the Facebook account that you just read?
Yes.
And the message that you
They can
see
get a
on this
lot of really
particular
good
screen,
information, can't
starting
they?
on the one, starting on the very first one, can you read for us the date and time of that first message?
12/8/2019 at 12:13 a.m.
And what's the message?
Hey, need help ASAP. Please need a jump and jumper cables.
And can you please read the date and time in the next two messages?
12/8/2019, 12:58 a.m.
And what are the two messages there?
I need a jump. My car died. We've been sleeping in our car and the battery just died.
Did you say my car died?
Yes.
My car died.
All righty then.
Also like to show you what's been marked States Exhibit 140. And I'm just going to have you look at that just for a quick moment.
This technical stuff is just like a snooze.
I don't suppose you know who Travis Beach is.
Wake up, wake up.
I don't know. I know the name, but I don't know anymore.
Don't know the person personally.
No.
It's just, you know, a lot of things a
Regards
person
to
doesn't
this
really
particular exhibit,
understand,
The
but
same number that you read out a moment ago. Facebook account.
I mean, this part's pretty basic, but when they start getting into the trillions and the kabillions and
Message to Matt Jenner. Could you please see? Do you see that same 1000900788583 number on that particular exhibit?
I do.
And that particular the message is going back.
I
and forth.
know.
Does that person appear to be
It's true,
communicating with
Dandy.
Travis Beach from a Facebook account with the same number?
And I mean, they're
That appears
all
so,
over
yes.
the place.
And can I just ask you a quick question, Detective? Regards to the time that's indicated on this particular exhibit, I'm going to take it back from you. Do you see that it says UTC there?
It's
Yes.
like, geez, kabibble.
For us here,
A lot of it, I guess, yeah, it's just
what is
they're not making a lot of sense as far as this case goes.
It's universal time code. It's a way that everybody knows what time we're talking about without having different time zones.
I mean, they get
So if I
here
say
it is,
8
I guess.
o'clock,
They get so
8 o'clock is a
microscopic.
different time in California. So 8 o'clock is always 8 o'clock in UTC.
So 8 o'clock is 8 o'clock UTC. So Does it work like time zones in terms of if it's currently 2 o'clock here, then I've got to think, well, what time is it in California? I have to go back 3 hours, so it must be 11.
I mean, you got to think they're going to put it together, right?
Where we are here in the
Where we
Eastern
know
time zone
exactly.
versus UTC, is there a difference between the two?
Yes, every time zone is just an offset of UTC time.
So what is the offset for where we are now, Eastern Standard Time? What's the offset of that for UTC?
It's
And
minus-
specifically, I'm sorry, I should be more specific. During the winter, when we're in Eastern Standard Time, as compared to the spring, when we spring ahead to Eastern Daylight Savings Time.
You got me because I always mix it up off the top of my head, but it's either 4 or 5 hours minus.
Does it fluctuate back and forth between those two based upon the time of year?
Yes.
Let me just have a moment.
Alrighty then. Like I said, I know where they're going with this. I just
Between 4 or 5 hours, depending on the time of year. That's the difference between where we are now, Eastern Standard Time.
they
and
need to put the
UTC.
puzzle together, I guess.
Thank you. I have
Got
no
all the
further questions
pieces?
for you, sir. I believe Defense Counsel may have a few.
Now put it together.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
I'm Jamie Brooks, and I represent Adam Montgomery, and I just want to get a quick clarification on something. The state talked with you about a phone. ABR4 is what it's labeled. And the state talked about how there is a Facebook account that was accessed on that phone. Do you understand thus far?
Yes.
Great. So the state then showed messages
Oh, an
or
ass.
Facebook Messenger exchanges
No.
from that account. One involved an exchange with a Matthew Gendron. The other involved an exchange with Travis Beach. Do you follow me thus far?
Yes.
Okay. So,
What a dickwad.
but what is not shown is that those messages were physically typed from that phone. Correct? That's not what the
Correct.
evidence shows.
Yes. Well, I don't know if I'm sorry. Can you rephrase?
Sure. The evidence does not show that those messages were actually made from that specific phone, ABR4, correct?
Okay. I did not review the messages themselves. I reviewed the account.
Okay. So all that's
Okay.
shown is that the account that had those exchanges was accessed on ABR4.
That's what I reviewed. Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Just to clarify, Detective, so you
That's
found out
it?
That phone was logged into that account. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that was all sitting on the deleted space? The deleted space on the phone? The account was no longer there on the phone. You're finding it in this deleted space?
The files that show the account were not deleted, but I don't recall whether the account was actually deleted from the phone. But the files were not. They were resident on the phone.
They were resident on the phone.
Yes.
So you could see them.
Yes.
And this was the phone that was ABR4. Do you know where Detective Bergeron Rosa got it from or not?
Yes, I believe he got it from Eco ATM.
Right. Thank you.
Nothing further.
All right, you may step down.
Thank you.
Jishka Bibble.
Any
You follow me so far?
This is excused.
What's the reasoning for that? Jeez, just both of them are just disturbing humans.
Excuse me. The state calls Craig Stansel, Officer Craig Stansel.
Oh my, right? I don't even get it. Not yet, anyways. It's like, where the hell is this going? There's got to be a reason somewhere. Okay.
What's your stuff report? Thank you.
Yeah, there's not very many defense that I really like. I have to admit that. But there's always at least one that just drives me bonkers. And Elaine is kind of driving me bonkers.
Thank you. You can have a seat.
Thank you.
Make yourself comfortable. There's some water there. you're ready, if you can just begin by stating and spelling your full name for the record.
Yep, my name is Craig Stanzel. First is Craig, last is Stanzel, Stanzel.
And I've called you Officer Stanzel, but can you tell these jurors how you're presently employed?
Yep, I'm currently a juvenile detective with the Manchester Police Department.
So Detective Stanzel,
Correct.
what's your current duties or role and assignment as a detective with the Juvenile Division of the Manchester Police Department?
Currently, I'm a school resource officer at Memorial High School. And when school's not in, I'm a patrol officer.
What
All
is a
right.
School resource officer.
Officer at the school. We oversee school safety, and we try and bridge that gap between police and youth.
Step
And you said
down.
you also do patrol when school's out.
Correct.
What does patrol look like for you?
Patrol is typical police duties, whatever calls for service might come in, car accidents, domestic incidents, also proactive police work, car stops, things like that.
And how long have you held the position of detective with the Manchester Police Department?
I became a detective in September of 22.
You said September of 22?
All righty.
Have you held any other roles during your time at the Manchester Police Department?
Yep, I started off as a patrol officer.
Were you working patrol back in December of 2021?
I was.
Is
And
Elaine
let me
going
back
to eat
up
this
just a
guy
moment. Did you
alive?
graduate from the New Hampshire Police Academy?
I did.
What year did you graduate?
I believe it was April of 2020.
Do you remember what class that was?
181.
181?
Correct.
Rookie?
Back in December of 2021, what shifts did you typically work for the police department?
I was working day shift.
What do those hours look like?
7 to 3. 7 to 3:30.
7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m.?
Correct.
And back then, in December of 21, what would happen at the start of each of your shifts?
At the beginning of every shift, we have a roll call with either the sergeant and lieutenant of the day, along with all the patrol officers going on shift.
You said that's at the beginning of your shift.
Correct.
About how many officers typically participated in those?
However many are on duty that day, 15, 20.
And you called it a roll call. What's the purpose of a roll call?
Multi-purpose. We do a systems check. We make sure all our gear is working properly. We'll go over any high priority incidents that may have happened recently, officer safety issues, and sort of things to be on the lookout for.
When you say be on the lookout for, do you talk about people to be on the lookout for?
Sometimes, yes.
Is there an acronym that goes along with that? Ebola, for example.
I have no
Be on the lookout
idea
for
what all this is about.
those apply to adults as well as children.
Yes.
Other than
I want to switch
Kayla,
gears. I want to talk about your involvement as
that
an officer in
DNA in the
Manchester Police Department.
ceiling. I don't know. These guys, I don't know where they're going,
Are you
friend.
familiar with that individual?
Yes.
That name?
Yes.
Can you tell these jurors your role, just generally, your role and participation in that investigation?
Yes. Back in December, of that year, I located the vehicle in which he was occupied.
And when you say the vehicle in which he was occupied, who's the he that you're referring to?
Adam Montgomery.
And let's break that down. When did you begin looking for Adam Montgomery? You specifically.
That morning, be on the lookout was issued during roll call for a blue, I believe a blue Pontiac with Maine plates that he was associated to.
He being,
Adam Montgomery.
and I want to fast forward just a bit, but did you locate Adam Montgomery that day?
I did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
So, Detective, I'm showing you State's Exhibit 101. Do you recognize the individual depicted in this image?
I do.
And who do you know this individual to be?
Adam Montgomery.
POS.
Do you remember the The vehicle you mentioned, the Pontiac with Maine registration.
Yes.
Do you remember the individual that vehicle was registered to?
I don't recall the name. I do recall that it was related to Adam's current girlfriend of the time. I believe it was one of her relatives' vehicles.
Does the name Douglas Small stand out to you?
Yes.
Was that the individual who that vehicle was registered to?
Yes.
And if at any time during this discussion you need to review your report, let me know and I can give it to you. But that name sounds familiar. That's the individual
Yeah,
vehicle you were searching for. That.
but they
Yes.
talked about Kelsey.
Walk us through the course of that.
Was it the same parking lot?
From leaving the roll call that you discussed to finding the defendant. What did you do? What were steps that you took to find him?
So that particular day, my assigned route
Hello,
was
hello,
Route
Farky.
11, which is a west side route.
Hello, hello.
I started the morning by checking local area hotels, hotel parking lots for that vehicle. I believe I checked the Econo Lodge and one other hotel on the west side and did not locate the vehicle. I then went to a parking lot where sometimes unhoused people sleep in their cars. And that's where I noticed the vehicle with the Maine registration.
And let's back up just a bit. What was the purpose of finding, what was your purpose of finding the defendant that day?
So the be on the lookout was issued during the roll call to locate Adam Montgomery in the hopes of locating his daughter, Harmony, who family members hadn't seen for approximately 2 years.
2 years. Generally, when you're responding as a patrol person, do you wear any specialized surveillance footage in your person?
Yes, we're equipped with body cameras.
And is that typical of each of your shifts as a patrol officer?
Yes.
Body cam footage, who is that issued by?
I'm sorry.
Your surveillance footage, the body cam footage that you wear. Who is that? Who's the issue of the body of that? Who gives it to you? Do you get it from the police department? Do you get it yourself?
The camera?
Yes.
The camera is issued by the police department.
So your body worn camera is issued by the police department?
Correct.
Do you have occasion in your experience to review that footage?
Yes.
And in your prior review of body cam footage that you gather during the course of your time as in patrol, is that the footage that's depicted, is it taken at the same time as the events that you're perceiving?
Correct.
And is it fair and accurate?
Yes.
And that recording, does it capture the events as they occur to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
I can see Elaine having a
So,
little bit of fun.
To December 31st of 2021, you were looking for the defendant, you said.
Yes.
Were you wearing your body cam
I was.
at that time?
I was.
And was it running?
Yes.
And prior to your testimony today, have you had an opportunity to review the relevant portion of that recording?
Yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
So Detective, I'm handing you, it's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 142. I'm just going to ask that you look at that. What is that item?
USB card.
Okay. Have you seen it before?
I have.
Is there something attached to it?
Yep.
Do you recognize writing on the attachment?
I do.
And what is written there?
My initials.
Did you initial that?
I did.
And was that after having reviewed the portion of your body cam footage from that day?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move to strike that view State's Exhibit 142 and mark it as full published to the jury.
It can be, the ID is stricken, it is entered as a full exhibit, and it can be published to the jury.
Yeah, this just is, I'm not impressed either. And all of that stuff that's over in that far corner in the courtroom, all of the evidence, it doesn't look like it. It's horrible. It looks horrible. It's just, oh my word. And I'm not understanding why they don't focus on something and talk about it, deal with it, and then on to the next. They're throwing like all the ingredients in and expecting it to turn out good. It's like,
So I'm just going to ask that you turn to the screen behind
and
you.
some of the questions are just useless. And then they're like, okay, we're done.
Still on the screen there. What are we looking at?
That would be the blue Pontiac with the main registration that the Bolo was issued for.
And you testified earlier that you found the defendant that day. Where did you find him?
In a parking lot on Harvell Street, adjacent to some softball fields known as Wolf Park.
Wolf Park. I'm just going to start that video up.
I didn't know that. Isn't that interesting?
What was the defendant doing when you found him?
He was sleeping.
I remember watching this when it happened.
And back up for just a second. Were you able to make out an article of clothing that the defendant was wearing?
Oh, look at
Yeah,
that.
he was wearing a T-shirt that had staff written on the back.
And can you just point at the defendant? You said staff was written on the back.
Correct.
And how about the front of his shirt?
Front says Chorus Banquet.
Isn't that
The
interesting?
individual that you identified as the defendant in this case, Adam Montgomery, is that the individual who's on the screen there?
That's correct.
I think Kelsey's in that car as well.
Was there another individual in the vehicle with him?
There was.
Yeah.
And how would you describe that individual?
It was a female asleep in the front seat.
And you testified earlier that it was a blue Pontiac, I believe?
Correct.
Seeing your body cam footage, do you agree that it's blue?
That would make sense.
Blue, maybe grayish.
And I don't know how long it was after this that,
Were there any other individuals in the vehicle with the defendant?
that Kelsey passed away.
Just the female in the front seat.
Yep. Yep. And so pretty. Oh, I love you, baby. Want to move into my car? Like, what? Yes, I'm inviting you to live with me. You want to move into my car? Laundry basket, March 18th. Thank you, Dandy. Thank you very much. Yeah. Just brutal. Yeah. I mean, she was pretty in some of those pictures, like super pretty, and looked like she had her ish together to live in with this piece of vomit.
Fair to say that was your interaction with the defendant that day.
Correct.
Thank you. No additional questions. Your Honor, I pass the witness.
Just real quick, I think that you said that the parking lot where
Oh,
you
God.
found
Okay.
Mr. Montgomery asleep in his vehicle was a place where unhoused people were known to park and sleep,
Correct.
and it's one of the reasons that you check that place, because unhoused people are known to.
Correct.
Thank you.
Nothing further for this witness. Your Honor, I'd ask that he be excused.
Yeah.
Or I,
It's a gift and a curse.
nothing additional for this witness. Your Honor.
Okay, so you may step down.
You're funny.
Not
Not asking
requesting.
You're not excused, but you may step down. Thank you.
We can approach, please.
Yes.
He made me giggle. When I was growing up, my mother always said, the worst things out there are thieves and liars. So definitely not a thief. And I learned not to lie. And it's like, here it is. And I'm not good at fluffing things up. Did she? But you know what? Ultimately, that is a true statement. But so yeah, I'm like, it's not always a good thing. Sorry. Exactly. You're the people that you surround yourself with. Yep. It's very true. Very true. Yeah, my mother didn't teach me much that was good, but that was good advice. She had probably just heard it from somebody else. But yeah. Oh, Lordy, Lordy. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I don't fluff it up because I'm not a good liar. Like, you'd see it all over my face. My eyes would go all over the place. Having a panic attack. I'm not a poker player. Oh my, oh my, oh my. So yeah, isn't it so sad that she was around Adam for such a very, very brief time and ended up taking too much and passed away?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's about 2:30, and we are going to end for the day today. I
Oh,
want to give you a little bit of additional information where I can. I like to try to give you a little bit of a roadmap about where things stand.
oh,
So,
yes.
the evidence is coming in a little bit more quickly than we anticipated. People do the best that they can in terms of estimating how much time a trial will take. We expect that the evidence will be in before the end of next week, and maybe even closing arguments and instructions. Originally we'd said 3.5 weeks, which would be well into the following week, and then there's periods for deliberation. And we don't try to estimate deliberations. Deliberations take as long as they take, so you need to plan that for that accordingly. But we do anticipate that the evidence will be in before the end of next week, and possibly, as I say, closing arguments, final instructions, and then it would be time to deliberate. And deliberations take as much time as they take. That's the best we can say
Wow.
about that. So I just wanted to let you know that, as I said, I do like to try to give you some roadmap where I can. So
Yeah.
that's some additional information for you. I also
You
want to let you
betcha,
know you've been
friend.
seeing a lot of exhibits. The exhibits do go back into the jury deliberation room unless there's some reason why we don't send something back. But by and large, the documentary evidence, the photographs, video, that does go back into the jury deliberation room. Anything that doesn't go back, if you wanted to see it, I would bring you back into the courtroom to see it. So you'll have access to seeing all of the evidence. And as I say, the documentary evidence, things that have been marked as full exhibits, those will be in the jury deliberation room with you. So I just wanted to let you know that as well, because you're hearing a lot of information, you're seeing a lot of information. So I did want you to know what you would have. We are now going to adjourn for the day. I remind you, and I can't say it strongly enough, you're now going to be gone for the next 3 days. Monday is a holiday. It's a court holiday as well.
Oh,
So you won't be here Monday, but I will have you come back at 8:45 on Tuesday. Do not do any independent research. Make sure that you are avoiding any media about this case. So don't watch anything about it on television. Don't look at anything on social media. Don't discuss it, again, not with each other or with anybody else. You don't want to hear what they have to say about it, and they can't hear what you have to say about it. So right now we just ask you to, keep an open mind. As I said to you at the beginning of the trial, keep an open mind until all of the evidence is in, and you are starting deliberations. Okay. So don't do any independent research. Don't drive by any of the locations. Don't look up the law. You will get the law from the court in the court's instructions at the conclusion of the case. And as I said to you earlier, you will also have all of that in writing as well. So for now, you've been an incredibly attentive jury. I'm so grateful for the time and attention you've been putting in. So take a rest this weekend, try to enjoy the outdoors, and don't read the papers or the news. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you Tuesday morning, 8:45.
all righty. Short day, short day. So I'm game, ready to get through that hearing. Okay. I will set something up, make sure everybody's got their bell set. I've got a couple of things I got to do, and then I'm in. Aw, aw. Not Ethan Miller. Actually, it's Ethan Crumbly, and it's his Miller hearing. I think we've done 3 now. Let me look. I may have done more even. Do you remember which? Let's see here. Okay, so it'd be part 5 because we've just finished part 4. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. Oh, you know, just yeah, he's got to pop in somewhere. Okay, okay, I'll set it up. I'll set it up. So, guys, thanks for hanging out with me. I'll go in and get rid of the green goblin and set up another stream for. Won't be that long. Won't be that long at all. Within the hour, I would think. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys there. And again, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.